centuries. You don't know where you land. It's so dark in mythology. Treasures of history to be found. Hear the legends of time. All the handiworks remain. Only the dream away. Orion,
Season 13 was unlucky for no one, except for that poor sad Troughton fan who couldn't handle that the show had evolved, changed and moved on since their day. Take that, me. It began on the 30th of August 1975 and finished on the 6th of March 1976. There were 6 stories, and overall it's a better and more consistent season than the last one. We open up with Terror of the Zygons, where we are introduced to the only iconic new aliens of the Tom Baker era, the Zygons, who recently appeared in Day of the Doctor, which was their second appearance. How'd they manage to become iconic and appear in the 50th anniversary special based on one appearance? Honestly, it's because this story is really fucking good. And because they're the best designed aliens the show has had since the Daleks. The Brigadier and unit are in Scotland investigating the destruction of oil rigs, and sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. Figuring the Doctor might be interested, he sends for him.
It's from the Brigadier. He's in trouble again.
They did Comedy Wales in The Green Death, and they do Comedy Scotland here, though Scotland's much better handled than Wales was. A Zygon ship crashed on Earth eons ago, and since their crash, their home planet has been destroyed. I think that since then this has been retconned with the Time War, and they aim to take Earth as a new home, even though there's only about 3 of them. Okay, there's more than that, but they still have a distinct numerical disadvantage. Oil rig killing Loch Ness Monster or not. This is the last of a series of stories that pretty much have to be back to back. There's pretty much no space for extra stories between Robot and this. I only bring this up because for much of the classic show that was pretty unusual. Harry Sullivan left at the end of the story. With 4 being the youngest Doctor thus far, there was just no need for him. He was the last male companion until Adric, near the end of Tom Baker's time. Terror of the Zygons is 4 episodes long, and it is a classic. It's great to see Unit again, and it's nice to see them treated semi-respectfully by the script. In many ways, this would have been the natural end for Season 12. With the second story, Planet of Evil, we have our first story commissioned by Philip Hinchcliffe. It's 4 episodes long and is set on the planet Zeta Minor. A geological expedition's been accidentally fucking shit up with an antimatter universe, so creatures have been killing them off. It gets even worse when the expedition's leader gets turned into the Anti-Man. It's like the Tom Tit thing in the Time Monster. What moron let Anti-Man get to broadcast? I know that it's short for Antimatter Man, but Time wasn't exactly at a premium. You could have just called him that. Anti-Man sounds like he's either a supervillain powered by misandry, or possibly a guy who thinks he's someone's aunt and become a superhero. This is one of the stories that lifted pre-existing ideas, though it's not quite as blatant as some others. The Anti-Man is a little bit of a riff on Mr. Hyde, with a few other elements that were inspired by Forbidden Planet, which was inspired by The Tempest, which was written by William Shakespeare, who the Doctor first mentions knowing in this story. In the Shakespeare Code, there was originally a line that explained that the Shakespeare the 4th Doctor knew was older than the one the 10th Doctor met, but they cut it out. The most interesting element of this story is the planet itself, a dense, eerie jungle built as a set. The BBC were so impressed with it that they would use it as a reference for good jungle sets for years afterwards. From that we have another mostly earthbound story, The Pyramids of Mars. This season has 2 stories which are pretty much recognised as absolute, top-of-the-range classics, and this is the first. A doomed archaeologist discovers a lost tomb in Egypt and is murdered by Sutekh, a not very pleasant Egyptian god. He's from an ancient and powerful race called the Osirians that the ancient Egyptians mistook for gods. You ever heard the phrase, "The Simpsons did it first"? Well, that's bullshit. Doctor Who did it first. Egyptian god aliens that can possess human bodies? Doctor Who. The flux capacitor is part of a time machine? Doctor Who. A vast computer simulation that you can enter and is indistinguishable from the real world and is called the Matrix? Doctor Who. Planet Vulcan? Well, Star Trek got to that one first, but only by a couple of months. Anyway, Sutekh is voiced by Gabriel Wolfe, and he is the best voiced villain in the whole of Doctor Who history.
Kneel! Kneel before the might of Sutek. In my presence, you are an ant, a termite. Abase yourself, you groveling insect.
Do you recognize him? You probably should. He also voiced the Beast in the Satan Pit. I'm still surprised they didn't just have Sutek be the main villain of that story. He was, basically, the ancient Egyptian Satan after all. I just think it's a bit weird to cast a really distinctive sounding guy to basically play the same part all over again, but claim that they're different people, when they could easily have been the same. Regardless, Gabriel Wolf is fucking amazing, whether he's playing Sutek or the Beast. I'd really suggest you buy this story on DVD. For the DVD, they created a short fake documentary about Sutek as a retired actor who was most famous for playing himself on Doctor Who.
Plus, I've got all my hobbies to keep me occupied. Entomology. Abase yourself. Before me, you are nothing but an ant. You ant. This is the real plaything of Sutek. His name's Kneel. Kneel. Kneel before the might of Sutek.
It's fucking amazing. Anyway, the Osirans trapped Sutek in a tomb, and now he's possessed the archaeologist, and plans to use his robot mummies to lay waste to the world. We also get one of the time tricks that Moffat loves so much, as the Doctor takes Sarah Jane to her own time to show her what will become of the world if they don't stop Sutek in the past.
It's a trick!
That's the world as Sutek would leave it. Desolate planet circling a dead sun.
It can't be! I'm from 1980.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
In short, get this, it's one of Tom Baker's best. And the next is not one of his best. The Android Invasion is inspired by stuff like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and was by Terry Nation, one of his few non-Dalek stories. The Doctor and Sarah Jane arrive in what appears to be a small English village that's inhabited by android replicas of real people. It's a training ground of sorts for an android invasion of Earth. This is the last appearance of both Sergeant Benton and Harry Sullivan in the show. Both get mentioned later on, but neither appear again. Ian Marter, who played Harry, wrote some novelizations of Doctor Who stories and an unmade screenplay for a Fourth Doctor movie, where he was going to battle the devil. He died in 1986. John Levine, who played Benton, is still alive and kicking, so maybe he'll return one day. The Brigadier was supposed to appear as well, but Nicholas Courtney wasn't available. This isn't terrible, it's far from terrible, it's just an average 4-part story caught between two classics. The next story is The Brain of Morbius. This one riffs heavily on Frankenstein. A renegade Time Lord called Morbius was executed for trying to conquer the galaxy. As you do. His brain was taken by a supporter of his called Solon, a master surgeon who has since set up on the planet Karn, last seen in Night of the Doctor. He's been grabbing people, things, monsters, and stuff to steal parts and create a new body so Morbius can live and conquer again. Yes, this is very silly, but it's a great type of silly. I mean, Solon wants the Doctor's head for Morbius's new body.
Superb head.
Well, I'm glad you like it. I have had several. I used to have an old grey model before this. Some people liked it.
I did.
But when he can't get it, he's forced to use this glass thing. I'm mystified by how someone could be as good at surgery as Dr. Solon is, but not realize that that is a terrible fucking idea. That bit of confusing insanity is one of the reasons Terrance Dicks insisted his name be taken off the script. In his original draft, Dr. Solon was a malfunctioning medical robot, so it would have made sense for him to be demented. This story created a minor fan meltdown in one scene where the Doctor and Morbius have a psychic battle. As the Doctor fights, they cycle through images of his previous incarnations. But after reaching Hartnell, they keep going. The production crew intended these to be earlier versions of the Doctor, making Tom Baker the 12th Doctor, but obviously that can't be. So fandom came to the rescue and developed a few different theories. The most popular and sane one is that they were earlier incarnations of Morbius. This is also one of the stories where the Doctor flat out murders someone. Not a simple shooting them in combat, or manipulating someone else to kill themselves. He deliberately siphons poison gas into a room to try and kill Solon before he puts the finishing touches to Morbius's new body. All in all, this is a deeply silly classic, but a classic nonetheless. 4 parts of brilliant Hinchcliffe-era grisly craziness, and proud of it. The final story is The Seeds of Doom, a six-parter that manages to be amusingly similar to two previous stories while ripping off a book that would later become more famous as a film. Yeah. Like The Seeds of Death, this includes green stuff that kills you. And like The Ark in Space, this includes green stuff that reproduces by slowly turning you into a green thing. An act that kills you. An alien pod is discovered frozen in the Antarctic permafrost and slowly begins to wake up. It's an alien plant called a crinoid, and if it touches you, you will slowly turn into, yeah, this is the plot to The Thing. This was inspired by Who Goes There, the book The Thing was based on. And please note before you mention it, I have seen The Thing from Another World. It is a very good film. I'm just not talking about it in this video. The biggest difference between this and The Thing is that, like geniuses, they remove the crinoid from the Antarctic and give it to an insane, plant-obsessed millionaire who wants the human race to be destroyed by a master race of plants. So he's Poison Ivy, but he's disguising his tits very well. I love The Seeds of Doom. It's not as good as Morbius or Pyramids, but I fucking adore it. Terrible special effects or not, it's genuinely horrific. It might be ripping off half a dozen things at the same time, but it's wonderful. And it's one of the most disturbingly violent stories the show has ever done. Basically, I'd love more like this. Season 13 is much better than 12. 12 had its ups and downs, but this mostly has its ups and averages. Nothing truly terrible here, and the heights are really fucking high. This is a great time for classic Doctor Who. Join me next time when the borrowing from earlier works will hit critical mass, we'll lose Sarah Jane, and for the first time have a story without a companion.
Measure the mystery and the sound without taking up time. So the handiworks remain only a dream around.
Can you tell what it is yet?